Hello and welcome to this very special edition of Power Talk, Rising Above Recession. I'm Leanne Morejon. You know, all of us are living through the same hard times and dealing with a lot of the same issues regarding employment and budgeting. You may be one of those people who has lost their jobs or experienced a significant change in your employment status. So in this edition of Power Talk, we've decided to give you the tools that you'll need to take charge of your career's future and find a job that will be personally and financially rewarding. Joining us today is licensed clinical psychologist Dr. Rosalind Smith and Joan Harris, a certified career coach with her own company, Harris Career Coaching. Thank you both for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
It's a pleasure.
So, Joan, tell me a little bit about your professional experience and how you got into career coaching.
That's terrific. I began working with job seekers and employers 30 years ago this year as a graduate student at the University of Miami in the Career Center. And I discovered a passion for working with people who are looking for jobs and also working with the employer. So from there I went into human resources management, made a transition after a few years into executive recruiting. And I have over 17 years of experience as an executive search consultant. I work with Fortune 500 companies in a variety of industries, and did take a brief departure back in human resources for another South Florida company. So I really understand the employment process from the company point of view, from the agency point of view, and have always received calls and requests from people who are looking for jobs to see if I could help them.
Right.
And from the agency side, often we can't help them unless they're the exact right fit for the job that's available. But I do know that there are better ways to look for a job. I did some research, and after reviewing several options, I found an organization out of New York called the 5 O'Clock Club. And they have a program that is based on 25 years of methodology for a very strategic job search method. I went through a rigorous certification program with them. I am now certified in their method of coaching, and we have a method that works. It just takes a lot of hard work on the job seeker and some creative strategies.
Great. Well, I can't wait to delve a little bit more into this whole topic with you. Rosalind, tell me a little bit about your professional experience and, coming from a psychologist's point of view, how does this all tie in together?
Well, first I think maybe a little bit of educational background might be helpful so that you can understand where I'm coming from both personally and professionally. My undergraduate work was in economics at the University of California at Los Angeles, and then additionally I've done master's fellowship work in public policy analysis. It was some years later, a few years ago now, that I went back to school to get my doctorate in psychology from the University of Miami, pardon me, in clinical psychology. And that combining of educational backgrounds and work experience in the interim, I think, has left me with perhaps a unique contribution or understanding of how the worlds of personal decision making in terms of career and financial issues come together with psychology on the level of decision making, which is my interest in being involved with the kinds of programs that Joan and I have been doing.
Right. So tell me something, because when somebody loses their job, that can have a lot of psychological effects, can it not, on a person?
Absolutely. We are in this country, not just in this country, but certainly in this country, many of us are so tied up in developing our identities or assuming our identities as directly proportionate to the work that we do. Gives us often our sense of value in society, personally, in our families, that kind of thing. And when someone does lose a job for whatever reason, it can really shake the foundations of who they are. I think it's important for people to understand the psychological levels on which they've been affected in order to not be overcome by them and paralyzed by them, but instead to shift that sense of loss or anxiety or whatever might be tied up in job loss into energy to go out and find a better thing, perhaps. Often it can be a better next opportunity.
Right, and I can imagine that losing a job can also play up on your insecurities and kind of bring them out. Do you find that that's something that you have to contend with if you're helping somebody kind of start again, that maybe they're coming into it with, feeling unsure of themselves or with more insecurities than maybe they ever had before?
I think that one of the areas that we work on when we first start working with a new client is we do look at assessment, and we look at what they've done well in the past and what their accomplishments are and what they enjoy doing. And a lot of people do come in with a lot of insecurity, but this one of these exercises where they really go back and look at their accomplishments, they say, oh, I really did a lot, and they have a better sense of accomplishment. And I'm working with someone now who's all of a sudden gotten a couple of interviews, and we're getting some activity. And she sent me a note just last night that says, I'm feeling so much more confident now. Thank you. And she doesn't have a job yet, but she's got some really good interviews coming up, and so she's feeling a lot better. So I think it's just working with someone and realize that they have skills and they have something to offer. And especially if someone's been with the company for a long time, it is a blow when they lose that job. And these days it's no fault of their own. It's economic times.
Right. And I can imagine people that have been in the same business for years and maybe have come from a family who stays in the same business. I mean, that, just like you had mentioned, that really does become a part of your identity. And losing that can be pretty traumatic.
I wouldn't go so far as to say trauma in the clinical sense of the word, but unsettling and anxiety-provoking, certainly. And I think it's important in those times to, as quickly as possible, regain that clear and accurate thinking that is possible even in very difficult times, in order to parlay that experience into the next best opportunity for you. Out of crisis, any kind of crisis, often comes a new world for the person if they're willing to take the steps necessary to do the self-evaluation, as Joan was discussing, and in my profession that means also, and I don't think just in my profession, but in terms of really benefiting from life experiences, we have to acknowledge how they affect us. In this situation, one needs to acknowledge how it's affected them as soon as possible, so that whatever emotional or psychological response there's been to job loss doesn't get in the way of going forward, and particularly with the other financial stresses that many people are feeling now. It's so important to get back on your feet, to land on your feet as soon as possible, but to do so in a very secure, as you implied, way, and in a way that can propel the person forward into better opportunities.
Right. So as you mentioned, a lot of people are dealing with a financial strain. How should people go about balancing unemployment, financial strain, taking care of their families, all the things that people need to deal with on a day-to-day basis, but also with unemployment as a factor?
Well, I know that later today we'll be speaking with some people who are experts in the financial end of this, and so they will have a lot to contribute in that regard. In terms of balancing all of that, it really is about balance. And often the first thing to go under times of strain and stress, such as with multiple stressors like you're discussing, job loss, the credit card bills don't go away, the mortgage doesn't go away, life's daily expenses don't go away. The first thing that often does go away is a really dedicated self-care regimen. Often people stop exercising or return to those comfort food diets or begin drinking more, or doing other things that might mitigate the anxiety and it seemed to help in the short term, but when really what is needed is to carve out that balance through an internalized gentle discipline with oneself, but to really keep that balance in order in order again to be able to think clearly, in order to evaluate all of the options and one's interests in going forward, often during times like unemployment, irrespective of the other circumstances going on. In times of unemployment, that really can be an opportunity to take those deep breaths, take a step back and say, wait a minute, what do I really want to be doing with my life? How can I use this time to cobble together, to really strategize, putting together this series of experiences I have acquired over my life's work, no matter how long it is, in order to parlay that into something that will really be fulfilling on a personal and professional level.